Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Just want to give everyone a few minutes to log on as we kick things off. And if you are just joining us, if you wouldn't mind adding into the chat, where are you calling in from? Give a shout out to your organization. We'd love to learn more about who's on the call today. See if these start popping in the chat. Here we go. Duke Health. Welcome, Kathleen. Thanks for joining us today. See the participants number is just climbing there, so we'll give everyone just another minute. But thank you all so much. Today we'll be sharing Match Point, serving up omni-channel wins on Giving Tuesday. We're talking about proven strategies for aligning direct mail, email, SMS, social, search, and CTV around one unified Giving Tuesday message. And today's webinar is being recorded. So we will follow up after the webinar and we will share the recording as well as the slides. You've already seen and used the chat, but if you had questions at all today during today's presentation, feel free to pop a quick question in the chat, or you can use the Q&A function by selecting more and then Q&A and type your questions in there. We'll save a few minutes at the end to make sure we can address everyone's questions. And just a little bit about AGP. We help nonprofits turn missions into movements and supporters into passionate champions. We're a strategic partner to mission-driven teams who want more than just short-term wins. And we work in advertising and media, audience experience and research, data management, direct mail, mid-level and major giving, web app, AI development, and a lot more. We are also extremely proud to serve leading organizations across the following sectors: hospitals, public media, health and human services, and many more. And I am very excited to introduce you to today's presenters, our team players. Laura Henriksen, she is our Senior Vice President of Integrated Media Solutions. Ashley Wilhite, our Associate Vice President of Client Strategy, and Megan Garner, also Associate Vice President of Client Strategy. Laura, would you care to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm glad that you're all here. I'm Laura Henriksen. I lead the Integrated Media Solutions team here at AGP. That's just the big, fancy, complicated term. That means we handle all the paid media for our clients. So we're hands-on keyboard, getting the strategies that we've developed as part of an omni-channel approach sort of out into the wild to reach our potential supporters. I'll pass it to Ashley.
Thanks so much, Laura. So, hey, everyone. I'm excited to be here. So thank you for joining us. I'm Ashley Wilhite, and I'm an AVP of Client Strategy here at AGP. So my main focus is on digital strategy. So I work really closely with Laura on her paid media strategies as well. And I basically spend my day helping our clients figure out how to show up across all the digital channels in a way that actually gets donors to give. And I also work alongside Meg Garner as well when we're doing omni-channel strategies for clients. So I will pass it over to you, Megan.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Garner. Just like Ashley, I'm an AVP of Client Strategy here at AGP. Where Ashley is on the digital side, I am her counterpart on the direct mail side, as well as telemarketing. I've been in the industry for about 20 years on both the client and agency side. I'm primarily working with hospitals, healthcare, and human service clients and organizations. And I am a total direct mail nerd. I love looking at data and then using that to drive big picture strategy. So thank you all for being here.
Great. Thanks, Megan. So I'm going to kick us off. So this is our agenda. So before we dive in, here's sort of the game plan for our time together today. So we want to start with the why. So why omni-channel is the winning play on Giving Tuesday, especially when the donor attention is so scattered. which I think we all know, being in the nonprofit space, that it is really hard to sort of get the attention of those donors. And then from there, we'll do an introduction of City of Hope, and sort of the challenges that they face and those opportunities. And then we'll actually dive into the channel by channel strategy, which you'll hear from all three of us around sort of what we did in our channels and how that came together. And then we'll get to the fun part, which I'm sure everybody will want to see, which is the results. And then we'll sort of, we don't want to leave you with just sort of how we did it. We also want to give you sort of that planning framework for what you're going to be able to use for your Giving Tuesday planning for this upcoming Giving Tuesday 2026. So we'll just wanted to sort of set that stage for what we're going to cover. But now we want to really start with the why omni-channel, right? I'm sure that we all have heard that this is the best approach. So before we sort of get into City of Hope and what we did and how that all played out, we want to take sort of a step back and talk about the why, because honestly, this is the part that makes everything else work. Omni-channel, I think we all know this too. It gets thrown around a bit as a buzzword. I think some people think if we are doing, the same story, or we're doing the same ask, but it's really a fragmented experience. That's not really omni-channel. So it's really about bringing the teams together to really create that optimal performance and that optimal campaign for the donors that are experiencing that campaign. Next slide. Okay, so serving up actually, is it the last one that I need to go to? Oh, you can actually go back one. Sorry about that, Megan. Back to the serving up omni-channel success. Thank you. Sorry about that. So why does omni-channel matter so much here? There's a couple of reasons that we wanted to make sure that we touched on, sort of lay the groundwork before we get into the campaign at a glance for City of Hope. First, that is that donors are everywhere, right? We know that to be true. They are in email, they're in social, they're on their phones receiving text messages, they're opening up their mailbox and receiving direct mail pieces. So if we're only showing up in one place, we are quietly missing the people who live somewhere else, right? We know that some people may not be receiving direct mail, but they may be receiving email and text or vice versa. So it's really showing up with where they are. Second, donors have come to expect that connected experience. So they don't want it to feel like the messaging is coming from 5 different departments. They want to feel like the organization knows who they are. So aligning those messages and those themes and the asks across all of them is really important. So third, this is the fun part. This is where the channels actually sort of get to work together. It's really when they do work together, everything multiplies, right? You start to see those higher conversions, you see more giving, and you see a successful campaign. And then finally, it's showing up consistently across those touch points, like I was talking about in the second bullet there. It's really about building the recall and the trust with the donors, right? They want to be you want to make sure that they remember who you are and they believe in your mission, and that is going to get them to show up because you are earning that trust with them. Okay, next slide. So here's sort of the reality check that we all know when it comes to Giving Tuesday. And I think anyone who knows me knows that Giving Tuesday is my favorite campaign, but it is loud, it is noisy, it is really hard to break through. The single biggest barrier to giving isn't that people don't care. It's that a lot of times they just don't remember being asked, right? We are inundated when we are scrolling on social, when we are receiving text messages, when we are receiving emails, or even going through our mailbox, right? It's just a lot that we are receiving. And research has showed that half of the people don't even recall being solicited. Like, that's a lot of people. And that's only on a normal day. That's not even on Giving Tuesday, when you have millions of people that are shouting at once, and you're really competing for that attention. And so donors aren't just sitting around and engaging all day. So the key is always being able to sort of dip in and out in little bursts. So really thinking about the morning, the midday, the evening touch points. I mean, I know for me, I typically check my emails in the morning, but I might scroll on social media in the evening, right? And so it's making sure that you are re-earning their attention multiple times throughout the communication stream that you are pushing out for a campaign. And then, of course, the other key is really making sure that once they get to the place that you are trying to get them to convert, a donation page or reply slip, that it is an easy process for them, specifically when they land on a donation page, right? You want to make sure it's seamless. You want to make sure that they are completing what they have landed on that donation page to do, which is to convert to a donor. So when we are looking, so that's really the why. So just to recap that, donors are scattered, attention is fragmented, and the day is loud. But there is good news in all of this, and it's absolutely possible to break through. So we want to show you what that looks like in sort of the real world with the City of Hope example. So I'm going to hand it over to Megan, who's going to introduce you to City of Hope and walk you through the campaign that we built together. So over to you, Megan.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah, of course.
So, doing a quick overview glance at the campaign and our client. Our client, City of Hope, is a cancer research institute and treatment. They were founded back in 1913 in Duarte, California. Today, it's one of the largest and most advanced cancer research and treatment organizations in the country. And it's also one of the leading centers for diabetes research and other life-threatening illnesses. City of Hope is also only one of 57 cancer centers in the nation that are recognized with the highest level of excellence recognition due to their work in research, treatment, prevention, and education. They're really cool. It's such an honor to get to work with this group. And I'm always struck by a couple of things about their legacy. One is just their research legacy. They are behind some of the biggest breakthrough medicines you've probably actually heard of. They were the first developers of synthetic human insulin, which blew my mind because I have a brother who has type 1 diabetes, and that is genuinely life-changing, life-saving. And they were at the forefront of that. They developed human growth hormone and many cancer drugs that I really can't pronounce, but are certainly well known. They run more than 400 clinical trials a year and enroll around 6,000 patients annually, which is amazing. And they've performed over 20,000 stem cell transplants to date. So they really are pushing towards their mission of making hope a reality for all touched by cancer and diabetes. So you can see that it's a super easy mission to get on board with and kind of push for Giving Tuesday. So, it wasn't like we had to convince ourselves, how do we sell this? The other part about their legacy that not a lot of people know is that they were established through philanthropy. And that is still so crucial to their current philosophy and the way that they operate. And fundraising actually makes up a very large proportion of their operating budget, more so than many hospitals and research centers nationally. So it's philanthropy is in their blood, which is really cool. So going into the, Giving Tuesday campaign, we had 3 primary goals. First, maximize revenue and donor participation. While revenue is always important, something that is important to City of Hope too is getting their name out there. While they are large and powerful, they're still not necessarily a nationally known name. And so this is something that they are really focusing on. And so we want people engaging with City of Hope. We want people providing emails and, yes, making gifts, but engagement and awareness is also crucial. And we also, every client, every organization wants this. They want more donors with more money and more value. So we're reaching for the stars with all 3. And then the second was that, like I was saying, strengthening brand trust. Giving Tuesday is very crowded, noisy, like Ashley said. So we intentionally treated it as also a brand building moment, not just a fundraising push. This is one of their tentpole opportunities to really be out in the market among all the other organizations as well. And then the third, and the one that is closest to my heart as a strategist, is we wanted to prove something. We wanted to prove that omni-channel integration actually works, and that it works well and can work well. That it's not just about running more channels, making a list of, how many channels can we name and possibly do so that we can, get pat on the back for all the channels we're doing. No, it was really about how can we make the channels that we're doing work well together and really coordinate and build, something great for the client. So that was exciting. Next slide. Yeah, so the match offer. For Giving Tuesday, City of Hope offers a 5-time matching gift incentive. They are a big user of matching gifts throughout, I think, every single campaign, direct mail, fundraising, on email, digital, everywhere. They have at minimum a 2x match. But the matching gift for Giving Tuesday is 5, and no other campaign replicates that. And donors are learning. I'm going to make my Giving Tuesday gift because I want that 5x impact, match. But outside of that, the match really offers a unifying high urgency message across all channels. It increases the perceived value to drive conversion, establishes that anchor around which each channel can do their job in the unique ways that they do, but still pushing that same message of, give today or give by Giving Tuesday for a chance to have your gift matched 5 times. And it really offers a momentum reinforcement throughout the day, especially on the day of when the digital is really at its, highest point, just to keep that urgency up. Yeah. So why does the campaign require a true omni-channel approach? We'll probably repeat ourselves a lot throughout this, so bear with us, because some of this is something that Ashley's already said, but no single channel can cut through the Giving Tuesday noise on its own. And you also don't just start with the fundraising on Giving Tuesday. There's a ramp up, starting in early November, and making sure that all pieces, all touch points across mail, digital, SMS, phone, paid media, all of that is coordinated, so that we know exactly what people are seeing and when and where. It's just so crucial. Second, I referred to clear roles. Every channel has its value. Email and SMS drive action, mail and phone help build trust, and paid media is crucial in expanding reach. When you orchestrate them together, then they amplify each other rather than conflicting. They're not in any way, like cannibalizing themselves or each other. And then it creates a seamless donor journey, So if I get a direct mail piece in the middle of November, I go, oh, right, I do want to participate in Giving Tuesday, but I put it down. And then later I see an ad or something on social media when I'm scrolling later in the month. And then I get my email and I go, oh, right, good thing it's in my inbox. And now I can click and make my gift. I've been planning that for a few months or a few weeks. That's exactly what donors expect and what we want. We want to be available to them at any point in their conversion journey. The other thing, it's not in a slide, but I was thinking about this morning, and Laura and Ashley, you can disagree with me if you do. I think our goal overall for last year was to basically replicate the year we'd had prior. In 2024, City of Hope blew Giving Tuesday out of the water in new ways. It was phenomenal. And it's hard, to replicate that and think you're going to exceed those those metrics. So I think our goal really was just to keep everything even, continue like building a really great Giving Tuesday campaign that can be used year after year. There wasn't an expectation that we would increase, revenue or donors or whatever by a certain percentage. Is that how you felt, Ashley?
Yeah, it is. I was going to say, so that being sort of our goal was to sort of stay flat, but I think what the difference was the way that we coordinated as a team. The
Sure.
second year was much stronger, which is probably likely what helped to see the increase in results, which we'll see in a little bit. So I do think it is about that early planning and the partnerships across those teams that can really help to lift the revenue, even if the campaign is the same.
Agreed. I think it was just knowing that our goal wasn't necessarily super aggressive off, year over year. And the addition of this very strategic omni-channel planning blew the numbers from 2024 out of the water, in ways that we weren't necessarily expecting. You always want to do better, but it really was so helpful and compelling.
And I would just add to that, just given the state of the world and the economy at the time, that's a big part of why we thought like, if we can meet, that would be like the new increase in that year. So the fact that we then kind of crushed it to the extent that we did was even more compelling, just given what was happening in the world at the time. Megan, did you want to make the quick mention about the creative that was on that page?
You know what? Why don't you?
Perfect. That's a good.
Share
You're
a
going to
little bit more
transition
about
to me
that.
anyway. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you, Laura. It's like, am I?
All right, Megan.
Go
We're
for it.
just going to mention the creative that you see on this page and that you'll see in some of the other examples. City of Hope, one of the other things that's really, really key to their success is the use of patient stories. So we have a lot of really brave, amazing patients who share candid photos, who share their personal stories. That was very much a part of this campaign, all the campaigns. However, to be respectful for things sort of after the fact and to make sure that City of Hope honors the commitments in terms of time and the extent to which they will use patient stories. In this presentation, all the examples that you'll see, it's kind of the base creative, but we swapped out the actual patient images for stock photos. So that is just a little nod we wanted to make sure in case you're like, wait a minute, you were talking about consistency, but I see some different people. That's why. Just wanted to mention
Thank you
that.
so much
You're
for that,
fine.
Laura.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about specific creative, but because these are stock images, they look really polished and everything is polished, but we also used images in the original campaigns that were snapshots that were more candid and really warm. And so I wish we could show those to you, but they are, they're not here today.
Yeah.
All right. Game, set, strategy. You ready?
I am. Thank you. So we're going to start to take the foundation that both Ashley and Megan shared and show you what it looks like. So you can see, I'm not going to walk you through every single image on here. Don't be alarmed. But you can see there was a lot of very intentional collaboration and coordination across the channel. So we did have the same patient across all the stories and all the images that I mentioned. You can see the purple is carrying through. There is a method that is consistent in terms of the call to action. You'll see the references to because of you. In relevant channels, you will see the Giving Tuesday logo. So you will see all of the great consistency there. And the other thing that Ashley and Megan both mentioned is that very intentional collaboration and coordination across channels. So it wasn't just creating that big list and so we could put all these things on the side. It was consciously thinking, how are we going to time them together? What targeting makes sense to carry across channels? And we'll get into some more of those specifics, but this is just a great way to demonstrate on one slide what this really kind of looks like when it's out in the wild. And the reason we want to do that, if we want to skip to the next slide, is as Ashley kind of hinted at, we want to create that seamless donor experience. That's what donors are used to. That's what they're expecting. And something that we see across our efforts, not just for City of Hope, but other organizations, is when we can make that custom and seamless across channels. That is really how omni-channel works, and everything lifts and works together. So how do we bring this to life? So you heard us say, because of you, that is sort of the kind of theme within City of Hope that has really become the cornerstone of their Giving Tuesday philanthropic message. So we took that historic theme, kept it fresh, new patient, again, that increased intentional multi-channel coordination and approach. And we really made sure that the intentional messaging and that emotional through line carried through across the board. Something that I love about our process at AGP is, most of you know, if you touch direct mail and maybe some digital channels, you know the lead times are vastly different. That being said, we plan and coordinate and strategize them together. So we will, because Megan has the luxury of the most space to tell the story, the most language, we will concept the entire campaign together in an omni-channel way. The direct mail creative and imagery is done first. Then Ashley's team works on culling those key points down into email, landing page content, and copy. When that is approved, then my team gets to work and helps put the finer points on the paid media strategy, drafts advertising copy, and begins the strategic foundation of the paid media creative. Doing that in a very intentional way is something that I think helps this work, and it also has a lot of inherent checks and balances. Not saying that all organizations have to copy our exact process, but going through something like that, and really making sure that even though there are those nuances in deadlines and timelines, it's really important that you have some of those conversations together. Another really important part of that was thinking through the audience segment and customization strategy. So in mail, in email, in paid media, we thought about, how would we say this story slightly differently to acquisition versus lapsed versus renewal versus a potential upgrade message? So thinking through, not how do we overcomplicate this, but how do we make it work better and feel a bit more personal and custom to these groups? So that was just another really important key. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about the match. Megan talked a little bit about that, but this was another really interesting way where Megan talked earlier about the different roles that channels have. This is a great way in how this kind of came to life. So the 5-time match. I think there was, I saw a question about that in the chat. What's really interesting is that in some channels, I know at least in like paid media, what's really fascinating is donors don't care how much the match is. They don't necessarily care who the sponsor is. They don't really care about all the logos, the names, all the things. We understand that sometimes that has to be part of the game for your match sponsors, but that's one really interesting consideration where we can be really cognizant of how much detail we get into about the match in different channels, you know, and taking into account what works best for a channel, and what we might also have to consider based on your sponsor agreements. So again, why the match was successful is not just because in general matches work, but it was really within the match messaging, segmenting that audience to make sure that we're able to kind of combine that message with a sense of urgency. So really, how do we customize things based on the potential value of that donor, how they've behaved historically, how we think they're going to behave with this. And again, without diluting the message in any way, just how do we take into account some of those slight nuances? When you guys get the presentation afterwards and you look at the slide I showed a couple slides ago where we kind of had the quick visuals of everything, you'll really see how that kind of came to life. It's the same match message, but it's addressed slightly differently based on the nuances of that channel. Timing is really key. Direct mail is something that generally is going to, you know, hit us first. But then when the digital channels is where we can really, as I think both Ashley and Megan mentioned, we can really kind of build that momentum and take advantage of consumer behavior. So both paid media and email had messaging early in the month to build urgency, start to create that momentum, the volume definitely picks up day of. And in some channels, we extended that after the fact. And the next handful of slides, we're going to start to get into some more of the specifics channel by channel into exactly how we did that. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to my friend Megan, who's going to talk to you guys exactly about how we did that in direct.
Thanks, Laura. Something I wanted to add and clarify, when we all come together for omni-channel planning, it can be a little bit of a shock, I think, to the system of digital teams when we're asking them to plan so far advance on the direct mail timeline. So we've done all of our Giving Tuesday planning for this year already, and digital will not even get started creative wise for a couple of months, I would imagine, or at least a good number of weeks yet. But we're diving into copy in the next couple of weeks for direct mail. So that was something we had to negotiate and had to navigate as a team and come together and decide, you know what, we can move up these timelines for planning so that we are all in the room at the same time. We don't have to be, beholden to certain timelines just because we've always done them that way. And so that's, I think, helped a lot. So for direct mail specifics, like Laura said, direct mail gets to be in homes a few weeks ahead of Giving Tuesday, trying to find that sweet spot where you give somebody a deadline to make a gift that's not too far in advance, so that they forget, and not so close that people feel like, oh no, it's too late, I can't do it. What's amazing to me is prior to coming to City of Hope, I had never done direct mail that was Giving Tuesday focused for any client ever. And so I was surprised that they had a whole mailing just for Giving Tuesday. And it actually turns out to be their largest internal house name quantity. So they have, normally if they mail 80,000 for every renewal, this goes up to 300,000 because we're pulling in other names from their database, grateful patients that qualify, very HIPAA, compliant. But this is huge. And you can see we have 3 different packages, and that's intentional around these audiences for people who might, be in City of Hope's database, but really haven't given or engaged much. They're getting a postcard with a QR code to a donor, landing page. Actually, their most generous donors, their mid-level, which are pretty high dollar donors, they get the self-mailer and they just want to be reminded to make their gift. They know why they give to City of Hope. They love City of Hope. So they get the self-mailer, send them an envelope. And then their general audience, people who do give throughout the year, they get the full number 10 package, with a full story. But as you can see, everything aligns in terms of appearance, colors, creative, and we stick with the patient story formula that we have discovered over the last few years, which for City of Hope and Giving Tuesday is a patient with cancer who's generally a mother, usually to younger children, but can still be an older mother with, adult children. Those stories tend to be the most compelling at this time of year and have worked really well for Giving Tuesday. Email, Ash.
Yeah, so email was, as I think we've talked a little about, was really the workhorse for City of Hope for Giving Tuesday. But I think the key thing that we try to remember internally, and that other organizations should remember as well, that it doesn't do it on its own, right? It is really aligned with all the other channels. So when we are looking and we are planning the strategy for these, it's really about that same patient story that we've talked about several times today. The same because of you theme, the same 5X match. And so we take all of that, and what Giving Tuesday becomes for City of Hope is really a 4-week email campaign. And so we start about 3 weeks prior with a save the date and a soft ask. And that soft ask surprisingly performs really, really well for folks that just want to give their gift that day and not be sort of inundated as it gets closer. Because once you give, we pull you out, right? We suppress you from those email communications. So they've got that chance before it gets really noisy. But the other thing that we were really intentional about that I think is important to remember is it's not always just about about the ask. It is really about the emotional engagement communications as well that happen before you get into really saturating their email inboxes for Giving Tuesday, and really priming the donors, and really getting them to understand and feel the why. Like why are we going to ask them? Why do we want them to give? And really sharing those the patient stories and really getting them emotionally connected. So then once we got closer to Giving Tuesday, we started fundraising about a week prior. So that was the real big fundraising push that was highly saturated with the 5X match, the patient story, all of the pieces that make the email campaign successful for fundraising. And then we did a day before. Now, day before is usually a tough one because that's also Cyber Monday, because we have to remember Giving Tuesday sits on the Tuesday right after Black Friday and Cyber Monday, when e-commerce is like out there. They are really trying to get people. And so now we're competing with those inboxes, right? So we just put an email out the day before just to see. Doesn't perform as well as the day of, but it definitely gets some of those early gifts. But then we really push the fundraising on the day of. So the day of is 4 email sends. And it is morning, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, late, to make sure that we are meeting people when we know that they are likely opening and engaging. And then it's about that match extension the day after, right? You want to catch those stragglers, those folks that didn't see the email on the day because their emails are just so overwhelming. But we want to also then, once we finish the appeals, we want to be able to close that loop with a thank you and a stewardship, right? And so it was, when we were doing our planning, it was not about sort of batch and blast and just send it out. It was really about thinking about the content strategy and that whole arc of how donors were going to receive communications throughout that entire 4-week period of time. And Megan, I see you came back on. Are you going
Yes.
to ask a question?
Well, yes, we do have a few questions in the chat, but I saw, Deanna, you had raised your hand. You had a question in the chat and in the Q&A. So I just wanted to give you a moment to ask your question live.
Yes. Well, this is very exciting to be able to share with you all. And 4Kids also does a matching gift for Giving Tuesday and December year-end match. And so what is the difference between saying a double match to a 5 times match? Like what would be the different messaging? Because at the end of the day, the gift is going to be matched. So is it up to a specific dollar amount? So that really intrigued me because we have done that in the past.
Yeah, we clarify with our communication that it's up to $100,000 usually. We would love that number to be higher. But we do communicate that there is a cap on the matching gift grant that's being offered. And obviously with a 2X, you can say, your gift will be doubled. And specifically in the language with 5X, we'll say something like, you'll have 5 times the impact on your gift and whatnot.
But what would be the difference though between 2 and 5? That's where I'm confused.
I mean, the difference really comes down to philosophy of accounting for these gifts. So if on your end you have a true amount, somebody has made a check for $100,000 and you say, we are going to, match every gift twice, or, we'll double it. So up to $100,000 basically means that at $50,000 of donations, you stop matching anyone's gift. Same with 5X. You would basically cap that at $20,000 because those are going to be multiplied 5 times. Yeah, and so that's really how that would go in terms of an accounting or what's the right word, stewardship sense. Some organizations are more flexible. They just use this as something like, we will match, your gift no matter what, basically. And whether we go over the 100,000 or not, but it really has to do basically with the organization's, philosophy on accounting and stewarding those gifts.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit to this too, Deanna, about how we messaged it in in digital, because we can't really see it here, but where you see those radio buttons and the second email in the screen grab. So those are radio buttons where we were able to say something like $10 becomes 50, right? Because it's a 5X match. So that $10 becoming 50 is way more compelling than $10 double becoming 20. And so we were able to really hone in on the impact of that gift to support City of Hope in a way that's felt much greater to the donor than just doubling it. And so that was sort of how we were able to spin it into the copy to make it more of like an urgent, more impactful gift if they made it during Giving Tuesday, as opposed to when we move into year end, which is exactly what you were saying, Deanna, is it becomes a 2X match for Giving Tuesday, for year end. And so that shift, we want to really lean into that, that impact for Giving Tuesday to get as many gifts as we can. Does that help answer your question?
I mean, not really, because I mean, you're saying, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be matched either way. So if they
It
give
is.
10, you know,
Mhm.
it's going to be matched the same amount. So I'm just confused as to how you can justify between 5 and 2. Is it just like if you give
Because
10? Mhm.
I'm so sorry, I did not continue. I didn't mean to cut you off. Apologize.
Yeah, no, I mean we do our own Giving Tuesday campaign as well, and we've said, you know, double the match, right?
Mhm.
And so if you do a 5 times, if you give $10, we say 50. So I mean we could say 10 times 100. You know, like I'm just really trying to see the difference because it's going to be matched either way. So up to that certain dollar amount, of course.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also think it comes back to what Laura was saying earlier as well around the match. So the what we typically see as well is a match is a match. And so the majority of people will give because it is a match, whether it is a 2X or a 5 match. And so for us, when it is that 5 match, it really just turns into us being able to sort of do that communication messaging within the all of the channels to just make it feel like the impact of whatever the gift is just greater. That's really what we're trying to lean into, because we can't really get into the nuances, right? We're really trying to stay focused on the patient story. We're trying to stay focused on the mission and the impact when we're doing these campaigns, and really trying to stay away from those nuances that are just going to be confusing to the donor. Does that make sense? And Megan and Laura, please chime in if you have any additional info that you'd like to share.
And I think it's a psychological tool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It sounds more
yeah,
powerful. And so,
yeah.
for this campaign, we want this to be one of the most successful campaigns of the year, which is why we do the 5X only for Giving
Mhm.
Tuesday. It's not
Mhm.
because it's literally going to change the amount of money that is matched. It's because it's going to change the
Mhm.
number of people who respond.
Yeah,
It's going to
Mhm.
change how many people give
yeah.
and what they give. They
Mhm.
will continue to increase that. They see
Mhm.
$10 becomes 50. Well, great. Then I will give 50 and it becomes 250.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, too, the psychology of that
Mhm.
5X multiplier.
Mhm. Mhm. And we see the same thing when we do the 5X for the last day of the year as well. So we do a 5X flash match at the last day of the year on December 31st. We see the exact same behavior that we see for Giving Tuesday.
I thought it was 3. We go to 5, huh?
I increase we increase it as a flash match for digital.
Well done.
Well, thank
That's
you
it.
for your correct question, Deanna. I
Yeah.
hope that helps answer it. We do have a lot to get through here, so I want to be mindful of the rest of the slides, but we're happy to follow up after the webinar. When we
Yeah.
share that follow up,
Mhm.
we can continue that there.
Perfect. So you can go to the next slide, which I think is going to be Laura for paid media. Yes.
Yes. So you can see similar look and feel, just theater of the mind, same patient story. But you can really see we aligned very intentionally with direct mail and email to have that patient story, look and feel, call to action. With paid media, we very intentionally had a full funnel approach. So there were tactics like CTV with a customized skin and QR code that you see. That was really designed to get users into the funnel, tap into that emotion right away. And then that fed the funnel and helped reinforce that. We had really, really robust audience targeting. One of the things we did very intentionally is we took some of the direct mail lists and intentionally targeted them just with the CTV. We had direct mail and email lists kind of woven through all of the paid media channels as well. And then from a prospecting perspective, we use those lists to help inform lookalike targeting. We also used a really cool data partnership that we had that allows us to very specifically target folks who care about fighting cancer. And as someone who's a proud cancer survivor myself, that's really important to be able to tap into and use data to tap into people that really have a personal connection to a patient story or a mission. So that was a really critical part of the strategy as well. And then kind of balancing that with some of those customized slight nuances to message, for example, for a lapsed donor. We talked about timing earlier. So, oh, thank you, Deanna. That's so cute. We launched campaigns for the entire month of November, but the spend really kind of ramped up the closer we got to Giving Tuesday. It's something we've played with for a lot of accounts and organizations last years, like how early do you push it? And pretty consistently, most of our clients who are engaged in paid media will turn on Giving Tuesday around November 1st. This year, we'll probably do that a few days later to avoid just midterm election chaos, but really it's just kind of laying that foundation, building up, and then extending it through the day after. And I'm going to pass it back to Ashley to talk to you about the phone strategy.
Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about texting and telemarketing. So I'll share a little bit about texting and then hand it over to Megan. This one surprises people because SMS can feel aggressive and disruptive at times. But when it's used well and it's used right, it can actually be a quiet powerhouse. And it is one that also doesn't compete with the other channels. It actually complements them, which is really great. It had all the same things that we've talked about around the stories and the match and the theme. But what text really does uniquely well is it really lands in inboxes and it's like an instant urgency, right? It's that reminder that lands in the right moment when the match is happening or when we're getting to the end of Giving Tuesday, or just a way to have that additional touch point to be in front of the donors, right? So the beauty about this one, like I was saying, is that it's not competing, but it's also low cost. It lifts the overall revenue, which is also great. And when you really think through the cadence, it can be a really successful channel within the overall Omni-Channel campaign. And so for City of Hope, we did an SMS the week prior to Giving Tuesday. And then we did one on the day of, and we actually tucked it between the second and the third email of the day. And so we did it where we sort of had a couple touch points. We had paid media going, then we dropped the SMS, and then we sent 2 more emails. And the results were fantastic for SMS, which we'll see in a minute. We are getting close to results, I promise everybody. But it was a really great lift for the overall campaign. And it's also thinking about how we nudge the donor, not nag them, right? Like it's really reframing the way that we think about it as a nudge and not a nag. So that's the way that we try to think about it when we are thinking about where we're going to place it within the campaign. So Megan, do you want to talk about telemarketing before we head over to results?
I mean, we did some select telemarketing to our phone responsive donors and found that one-time gift asks were far more successful than asking them to become sustainers. So any sustainer asks that we had in the telemarketing market at the time were paused in favor of one-time gift asks. Let's see some results.
Yes, can we? Okay. So, did it work, right? So here's the headline, and Megan and Laura, feel free to chime in if I miss anything. But the headline is, it was a great Giving Tuesday for City of Hope. The total revenue was 41% higher than the prior year. So as Megan had said earlier in the webinar, it's the same organization, it's the same day, right? We didn't really change a lot except for the way that we were planning and really thinking through our strategies. So the difference is really that coordinated omni-channel approach. But what I really love is the lift is shown across all of the channels, not just one, right? So direct mail, the channel everybody assumed was tapped out. Megan, we talk about this a lot internally, right? You hear this, you hear that digital is going to replace it. But what we're seeing with City of Hope is that it was actually up 11% on response rate and 30% on net revenue, which is fantastic. So email had a monster year. We were all very proud of the way that the email responded. Revenue was up 140%, gifts were up 60%, response rate at 46%. And I think the key thing to let everybody know, there was no list growth leading in year over year. So when we look at who we targeted the year prior and this past year, it was the same list of folks. And so that sort of increase was exciting to see. And we were all thrilled when we got the results. And then for SMS, which we just talked about, is that sort of quiet powerhouse. Revenue was up 72%, response rate was up 120%. And then we've got the paid media, which Laura is going to love that I say this, but this might be my favorite stat on the slide. To be able to see that 100% revenue growth on a flat spend is just incredible. So kudos to her and her team. To have the same budget, double the return, is just a really great story, and just showing that when media is telling the same story as everything else, it's really running, and it's helping us to continue to increase revenue across all the other channels as well. So the whole generally outperformed the sum of its parts. And so I'm so proud. I say this all the time, I'm so proud of this team and all the folks that got to touch this project. But the channels amplified together, right? We looked and we saw email and text driving that immediate action. Mail and phone were building the trust. And paid media was stretching the reach all around one story that we were telling. And so it was really great to see these results. But we also know that, it is a repeatable strategy, as Megan said at the start. This is a strategy we ran the year prior. We just were more intentional about it this year. So I'm going to hand it over to Megan to break down the decisions that helped make it repeatable.
Well, I feel like a lot of the decisions we made have been illustrated. We had specific channel strategies, emotional stories, urgency with a 5x match. And the third one, on the next slide, what's the third one? Targeting, segmentation, and customization. I'm running through these fast because I'd love to get to Q&A, and a lot of what's left in this deck is a lot of like how to do it, or, tips and tricks. But I don't know, team, Ashley, Laura, are you open to opening this up to some questions so that we do those in the last 8 minutes? I figure everyone will get the deck. And so love to, be able to answer some specifics if we'd like.
Thank you, Megan. There are a ton of questions coming in. So I'm glad I was just going to ping you guys on the side to let you know, so we can kind of just cruise through these last few slides here. Just a brief overview of your step-by-step guide to your Giving Tuesday. And then again, you'll get the slides, but some shortcuts that you can do to really maximize your returns on Giving Tuesday. And with that, let's get to some of these questions. Okay, we've got a lot in here.
I think we ended up answering Deanna's first one about how do you communicate the 5 times. Yep.
Yeah. So we have a question from Jennifer Drayton. And she says she has a question about social media as a fundraising channel. When we promote fundraising on our social media, our reach and our metrics tend to take a dip. So our communication team is reluctant to use social media for promoting giving days. Do you have any suggestions on how we can overcome their reluctance, or what's your advice? Yeah.
So the distinction I think I'm picking up on there is if you are referring to using just kind of your organic social posts to promote fundraising, that is generally something that we advise our clients against doing a whole lot of, simply because folks don't follow your social media platforms because they want an ask. They do it because they want to see if they are a supporter where their time and money is going, or they just care about the mission and they want to kind of check you out a little bit more. So we really, for major tentpole campaigns, we don't have a ton of heartache of maybe doing like a single post, but you definitely should not be doing fundraising frequently in organic social. That is where a boosted post comes in, or a paid media approach on social, or some of the other channels that you saw here. So that's what I would definitely recommend there.
Great. Thank you, Laura. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. Do you guys message about the match once the match is met, or do you stop messaging about the match at that time?
We don't ever stop until the
Never
campaign
stop.
is fully complete. And that is, again, part of that philosophical thing. City of Hope is allowed to continue to promote the match, whether or not it has been fulfilled, because it is such an important incentive. But not all organizations are able to do that. So it's just a unique scenario.
Thank you. We have a question from Mercedes. For email, do you suppress recipients that did not open the prior email? And similar question for the SMS messages that went out.
We do not. We do not use that as a suppression because of the Apple mail protection stuff that went, I think that was back in like a couple years ago, because it inflates the open rates. Open rates have no longer been trusting metrics. So we do not use that as a way to suppress or include folks in email communications. And then for text messages, we only suppress people who have given. So if anybody is given to the campaign, we do suppress them from the next SMS that they get, but we do not suppress if you have not engaged in the first one.
Interesting. Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Anna has a question. Did you guys use SMS in your Giving Tuesday campaign last year, or was this the first time you used it?
We did. This was our second year doing SMS for them. So the stats that you saw were year-over-year comparisons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another question from Emily Schwartz. First of all, she says, amazing results. Did you increase your touch points year over year?
For email, I can talk to that. For email, we actually reduced a couple of the email touch points that we had in November leading up that didn't perform well, so that we could sort of save space as we got closer to Giving Tuesday, for the ones that were going the week prior through to the match extension.
And no, direct mail is the exact same quantities, the same touch points.
Paid media was the same overall budget. There was some shifting and reallocation within that. We had the same channels year over year, but the shift and spend share between those was shifted a little bit in planning, and then also kind of in real time based on performance.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Deanna. What was your promotional budget to execute this campaign?
I don't know if we're allowed to share that.
Okay, all right.
But what I will say, we can see if the client is comfortable with us sharing some of that. But what I will say truly is that, yes, City of Hope has a healthy budget. I will say that. And I know that's not necessarily the position that every organization is in. But what I will say, if you are an organization that is small to mid-size, you can still take an omni-channel approach and make it work. You just have to be a little bit more creative about it, a little bit more, maybe some stricter criteria about what makes the cut for inclusion and things like that. But you can still do this approach. I mean, you guys get the presentation and you can sort of see the kind of like rules of engagement and the playbook and the things like that. Like that last slide that was just up, I think is a great reference to how this is something that can really be a stepping stone for those maybe just looking to get started.
Thank you. We'd have time for, I think, just one last question. Alexis shared that her organization has struggled to secure matches. Do you have any suggestions on how to source matches for their next Giving Tuesday campaign?
So we actually did something really cool earlier this year in direct mail. We finally get to do something fun. All the novelty is with digital always. We sent a solicitation to City of Hope's mid-level donors and asked them to help create a challenge match fund that we could use then. City of Hope will be using it in October for their Breast Cancer Awareness Month campaign. They did that because they always have a hard time getting a sponsor for their matches right at the beginning of their fiscal year, which starts October 1st. And it was so successful, and we were able to get the full fund funded by these donors. They were super excited to be involved in seeing how they could be part of creating a match for others to use. And so you can ask your own donors, you can ask board members, you can ask, friends and family, like come together, help us create. But all that to say, you can find groups of people to come together and create a fund that you can then use as your match.
A lot of our smaller organization clients have had matches funded by like their board and stuff like that.
Which is a great way to engage your board too.
Yeah.
So,
That's super interesting. Thank you, Ashley, Megan, and Laura, for answering all the questions and for sharing your expertise with us today. As we've mentioned, we will follow up and share the recording and the slides afterwards. If there are other questions that come up, feel free to reply to that email, and we'll make sure we get those questions over to our experts to answer all of your Giving Tuesday questions.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all again for joining us.
thank you.
Thank you.